Welcome to Krav Life. I'm Paul Simos, and I've got a special guest with me today, Mr. Derek Croley. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad. So, Derek, you are out of Asheville, right?
Yep, Asheville, North Carolina, in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. And you've got two studios. Are they both in Asheville, or?
Correct. I've got one on the north side of the city and one on the south side of the city.
Perfect. And so for the people that don't know who you are, can you give us a little bit of background on, how did you get started in the martial arts, and how did that eventually come about that you started doing Krav, and timeline?
Okay. Yeah, I started doing martial arts when I was about 8 years old, give or take, in Columbia, South Carolina. And the reason I got started was because I was a big Chuck Norris movie fan. And so my mother one summer, she said, Derek, you can go to summer camp or you can take karate lessons. And I didn't know what karate was. I didn't know that word. But she took me into basically though, I didn't want to do summer camp. So I took plan B. So right. she took me into the karate school, which at the time was out of a dance studio. They didn't really have, fixed location karate schools back then. It was all, renting a space in a dance school or rec center or whatever. So they took me to the dance school that they were using at the time. And we got in there, and I jumped into class, and we were doing this stuff I thought of as Chuck Norris ninja stuff at the time. And I was totally hooked. That was it for me. So I started, and then that was, they did full contact karate and Japanese kata, totally unrelated. So they would do kata and had no idea what they meant, and it was just dance, and then we'd fight. And that was pretty much my first karate school. Got to about blue belt there. Then from there, moved to Sacramento, California, and started training under a guy named Dave Kovar in Chinese Kempo, which was very application based, and so that was pretty good. And I trained until I got my black belt from him. Then we moved to Aiken, South Carolina, with my dad's job, and I trained in U.S. Thai system, and that was a combination of Kempo and Jiu-Jitsu, and at this particular school, a lot of karate stuff. The southeastern Thai is karate based from a guy named Virgil Kimmy. And he's an interesting character. He used to train frogmen and stuff like that. So a lot of very practical application concept from sort of a karate format. From there, and so I think what do I have in Thai? I think I've got a 7-3 black belt in Thai. I've sort of stuck with it because I like how they blend the Kempo and Jiu-Jitsu and blend information for the sake of saying what you can do with it. And then I went to college and did Goju-Ryu karate and Tai Chi. Then I moved to China for a bit, where I was learning different kinds of Kung Fu. So I like Tai Chi. And Tai Chi does have some fighting application, but mostly I like other aspects of it. More the meditation and body work and that kind of stuff. There are other Chinese arts that are much better for actually just fighting, like Xingyi and stuff like that. Anyway, though, so I was in China. I was doing that kind of stuff. Art called Yonggong, which is pretty neat. Then moved back to America and opened up shop here in North Carolina. That was in 2000. And over the past 20 years, I pretty much studied everything that was of interest to me. And I've always had a bent for looking for two kind of things. What is how can you make this an application that would actually possibly work realistically? And then two, how can we take different concepts and ideas and blend and mix them together to come up with a product, technically speaking, that would actually work? And so I've never been a traditionalist of anything. I've always wanted to kind of play around and see what we could, can we take this from this style and stick it into this from this style and kind of mess around with different stuff and stick them together. Then boy, could we fight with that or not? Would it work? Well, no, it's okay. Well, we'll change it, mess around with it. so basically I was doing Krav Maga concepts for a long time in that regard, trying to figure out what worked from looking at just different things. And then looking at different concept in how can we make our drills better? How can we do more? We use the phrase now stress drills, but at the time I didn't call it that. I called it chaos theory. Whenever everything is going crazy, how can you stay functional was the idea. Whenever you're hurt, whenever you're confused, whenever you don't know what's happening. And so I started getting into Krav Maga about 2013, and I've just been training in that ever since. Although I also still do a lot of kickboxing and a lot of jiu-jitsu and a lot of kung fu and a lot of other stuff. But now I filter everything through the mindset of Krav Maga to think, well, boy, we have this series of concepts. How does that fit into this? How might our 4 steps to a good technique work if we stick it into whatever style? And I think having that platform, that framework, is very useful. And I like exploring and playing with things because as it brings me back to the Krav Maga concept, it really helps kind of understand what all we're doing, basically.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Just for our audience, can you just go over what are the four steps to a good technique?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, as I'm sure your whole audience knows, Krav Maga is a system of principles rather than techniques. And so long as a technique fits certain criteria and claims to be Krav Maga, it can be thought of as that on a large scale anyway. So step 1 is recognize there's a threat. 2, stop the immediate threat, stop the secondary threat, and then create space. And that create space varies. If it's a civilian mindset, maybe you're talking about escaping. If it's a situation where you can't escape, then you talk about creating space, maybe to get a weapon, like we talk about friends, opportunities, and weapons. That weapon could be a rock, it could be your cell phone you're hitting somebody with, whatever. But it could be that if you're doing law enforcement, it could be getting to your bat belt. But anyway, whatever. But at the end of it, tends to be creating space to do whatever your next opportunity is based on what you're trying to do. At least that's the basic standpoint, anyway.
And so, just take us through how you would, let's say, learn. You go to, I don't know, whatever seminar, and a non-Krav seminar, and how you would filter that through those 4 steps.
Right. My process is that when I go to a seminar, I think it's important to be polite whenever you're training somewhere. So I'm not going to talk back to the instructor and be a jerk. I'm not going to ask questions that knowingly point to my perspectives instead of that person's perspectives. I think it's important to not be a jerk. But so I'll just go there and learn the information and try to learn it from the perspective they're presenting it. And then when I go home, I'll try to unpack it. Try to kind of break it down in my mind and think about, boy, so if this is the threat and this is what we're trying to do, first of all, is it going to actually work? From this other information that I have, does it kind of fit the ballpark of functionality? And then 2, does that is there extra material in this technique? So is it first of all, is it simple or is it too complicated? I find most martial artists, we really like complicated. We get excited about how weird and complicated can we make something. And I've seen Kempo guys do that, jiu-jitsu guys do that. All of them do that. And so we don't really want that. Most great fighters have like 3 moves they do. Yeah. That's kind of it. And they get really good at those 3 moves. And Krav Maga follows that concept. So anyway, though, as we're unpacking a technique or a concept, can we look at it first of all and can this be simplified? And if so, how and what effect would that have? Next is, can we take this concept and can we apply it to a large body of applications? So in Krav Maga, we don't want to do the thing where like where you go to the Home Shopping Network looking at kitchen stuff and you've got 4 billion different little kitchen things for any possible unique everything that you could ever want in the kitchen. When I don't know, whenever I cook, I use a wok, chopping block, and big old thick knife.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really use. Oh, and I've got a wooden spoon. I don't do a bunch of complicated stuff.
Right.
And that does everything I want. You can take that cleaver and it can be your cleaver and your spatula, and you can stir stuff with it and you're all good. I think Krav Maga should be like that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a few simple tools that you can apply to everything, and maybe a little bit of variation here and there, but you can do it. So once you've kind of unpacked a technique and looked at how that concept can be simplified, then you kind of start bouncing your principles off, a bit like your 4 steps to a technique. Your three main things your body needs to have. You need to be explosive. You need to get off the X, and you need to have simultaneous offense and defense, or as close as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There's some opportunities where the simultaneousness isn't exact, but it's very, very close.
Yeah.
And then from that, does it have the aggressive going through something? And then one last thing is this a technique that most people could do?
Right.
So if it has, like a 540 jump spin kick in it, probably not something most people can do. So anyway, those are kind of the baseline things that I sort of run it through. And then once I've done that process, then I go and experiment with it, and I start teaching it in a class and see what happens, and see how the students do with it, and then make adjustments from there.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, the way a wrist flex works in judo and jiu-jitsu, where you have a wrist and turn it, it's actually pretty difficult to get students to be able to grasp how to do that. Whereas a cavalier, you go and then boom, and they can do that. You can show it to them once and they can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You get a very similar result, but the way it's presented is something that people can easily grasp and easily grasp effectively. So I think that's a pretty big criteria too. Can people do it? So that's pretty much my process. Oh, and then the last part is I just screw around with it and see how it ends up integrating itself into my overall thought process and the way I move.
Yeah. And I think that that's a danger that can happen in Krav Maga if we don't filter things that way, like how you're describing, that Krav Maga will become complex and ultimately ineffective. We need less moves with a higher percentage of where it works than more moves, right? We don't need 16. Yeah. We don't need 16 moves for like one chokehold.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So you've, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've recently been inducted into a Hall of Fame of some sort? Or something like that?
Yeah, a couple actually. Yeah.
A couple. Okay.
The AMAA Hall of Fame thing for Legends of the Martial Arts, which I'm pretty sure just means that you're old, is what that means.
That's the way I'm taking it.
What's that?
That's the way I'm taking it.
But it was nice of them. With the Hall of Fame things, it's a nice attaboy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Although I don't put a huge amount of stock into that kind of thing, but it's nice. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I know you train in a bunch of systems, right? So that like you do like Superfoot and like a kung fu system and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Do you have that crossover with stuff from the system into your Krav, or do you try to keep your Krav stuff separate from everything else?
A little bit of both. Whenever I'm working on something for myself, there's no rules. I filter things through the filters of Krav Maga that I want to do, as well as a couple other things I just like doing. For example, I want things to flow and move a certain way to fit how I like movement to be. And also, being somewhat old, I have some injuries and stuff so I have to filter things through what I can do with how my body still functions. But whenever I go to an event, like if I go to a Superfoot event, I'm not going to do Muay Thai. I'm going to do Superfoot system. If I go to a Krav Maga event, I'm going to do the Krav Maga that they do at that particular that methodology of Krav Maga. I'm not even going to mix my Krav Magas. If I go to a jiu-jitsu thing, I'll do their jiu-jitsu. So to me, it's relevant to be able to keep things separate, so you can build on that database. But at the same time, then whenever you're experimenting for yourself, you use your creative process, use your shaping your own methodologies. Because I think martial art in general should be a personal journey. Not just Krav Maga, all martial art should be something that you're building and creating yourself. And if you spend all of your time trying to replicate being just like somebody else, that never works in any aspect of life. So I think we can use people as case studies. Like Funakoshi is a great case study how to do karate. But I'm 6'3", I can't move like him. He was 5 feet tall. Just the way our bodies work is totally different. Anyway, I don't even do that much karate anymore, to be honest. But just because I prefer different flow patterns. But no disrespect to karate. I just like a different direction of thought. But anyway, that's my long answer to your short question.
There we go. Yeah. So, and it's difficult to like when you know so many systems to dedicate enough time to each one, right? So
you gotta kind of pick your favorites, and there's always a lot of overlap. No system wants to admit that, but ultimately, as Bruce Leroy once said, a punch is just a punch and a kick is just a kick. So really, we're talking about like musical notes. There's only so many notes, but you can make billions of songs with them.
Right.
And so what you really start to do, I think, as a martial artist, is start to realize what type of movement you like and what type of flow you like. And then you start to experiment with different ways you can assemble the notes or the techniques and tactics within those flows and see what you dig, see what works out for you.
That's a very poetic analogy. I like it. So tell us a little bit about your Krav journey. So I think you said you started in about 2013, Krav.
Yeah.
So how did that journey progress?
Well, I went to a couple of just random seminars, and I was intrigued with the possibility. And I'd been sort of on my own, doing a lot of research in not dissimilar directions, basically, although not officially Krav Maga. And then I went to a seminar with Ernie Kirk, and he was my first official Krav Maga teacher. And Ernie really specializes in stress drills and finding very creative ways to explore the concept of staying functional during duress. So I think he's got some amazing ideas on that. And I also quite like how because of his background, his Krav Maga is very judo heavy, which I think is good. I think it's especially good for working in people that are functioning in full kit and stuff like that. So I trained with Ernie, and got up to whatever level of instructor under him. I don't know, whatever it was. And then basically through a series of events, ended up switching over to training under a guy named Ken Brayman. And Ken Brayman's out of Florida. And what I like about Ken Brayman's system is that his background in martial arts in general is not dissimilar to mine. A lot of jiu-jitsu and a lot of Kenpo. And he's taken a lot of the Krav Maga concept and put in a bit more of a jiu-jitsu idea to it, which I like. And the Kenpo that he doesn't really do Kenpo anymore, but there's a bit more flow to his striking, which I kind of like, even though it's totally Krav Maga. You hammer fist him and punch him, but there's a movement quality that I enjoy. So that's where I'm at right now. Whereas I think Ernie had more of a military-based thought process to his Krav Maga, just because he spent a lot of time working and helping over at the military base up there. Ken has a lot more of a police mindset, and so because that's sort of who he's worked more with. Both of them are, of course, excellent with civilian work, and but Ken has a lot more arrest procedures and stuff like that, which I think is pretty interesting and good to know. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And for the people in the audience that don't know who either of these two guys are, Ernie is Krav Maga Universal, and Ken is affiliated with Krav Maga Street Defense, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So where do you want to take your Krav from this point? Like, are there certain areas that of Krav that you want to explore? Like, do you want to explore more into the military side, into continue on with the law enforcement, or really explore the civilian side?
The answer is yes, but boy, how can I become Jason Bourne? That'd be cool.
Well, first you have to lose your memory.
Yeah, that would help, right? Which I'm working on. As I get older, that's happening more and more. So I think I'm getting there. But I think that the direction I would like to go is continuing to explore and refine, and just continue with what I've been doing of adding information and then refining that information and adding it, refining it. And I've been doing that, I don't know, forever, but I enjoyed that process. And I tend to be, when I learn stuff, I tend to be a little bit leaf in the windish, in terms of just looking for something I want to learn. I'll kind of float around and I'll see this thing I want to do, then I'll jump on it, and I want to get a black belt in whatever it is I jump into. So I might go train in something and I see something else. I'm like, oh, cool, and I'll it's like finishing a book to me. I'm not going to read the first couple pages and not bother with the rest of it. I want to do all of it. So anyway, to answer your question, I'm not entirely sure. But as I get presented with different possibilities of information, whatever sparks my imagination, I'll do it. And then whenever it sparks my imagination, I'll attack it full steam.
Cool. All right. So what is like one of your most memorable experiences? Let's do both inside Krav and outside of Krav. And if it's the same one for both, then that's fine too.
Most memorable experiences. I would dare say one of the things that most shaped me in numerous ways was living overseas. I only lived in China for a year. So my wife, we got married in China, I guess you could say. But my wife and I lived in China for a year, and that was a huge developmental thing. I was 24 years old at the time, and learned a whole lot about myself, about different perspectives on things, about different perspectives on martial art and different training ideas. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. I saw a couple of things I didn't think should be possible, like the time that my teacher sent me down the river to get a river rock that was like good size river rock, right? And he held it in his hand, and he goes and broke it. And I'm like, I didn't think that was actually a thing that could be done. That was just TV. And he goes, yeah, you can do it too. So he made me get a river rock, and all I did was, I'm pretty sure I broke this bone on my hand again. I'm pretty sure. So I completely failed. But that was a pretty neat demonstration. I wouldn't have believed you could do it if I hadn't seen him do it.
Right.
And I went and grabbed the rock. I don't think it was a trick. Let's see. So that was a pretty neat thing. just in terms of eye-opening perspective in China. As
Right.
far as Krav Maga stuff goes, I would dare say one of the most valuable things I did was go to Israel,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed hanging out in Jerusalem, uh, and just sort of seeing that and experiencing the culture and so on. And the reason I think that's such a big deal is that I really think when you're learning a martial art and learning, you're learning uh, something designed from a specific culture, from a specific perspective,
Hmm.
and a specific series of mindsets that are very difficult to grasp, at least for me, unless I go there and experience the people. And it helps you
Right.
really understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
Like a lot of Krav Maga in America is really kind of like CrossFit with bag work.
Right.
And as we test people in America on Krav Maga stuff, uh, most of the time when we take other black belts, they tend to fail because they don't get the mindset. They're very good martial artists, but very good at either tradition and creative martial arts or sport martial arts, but don't have a firm grasp of how that really applies to a Krav Maga mindset in terms of fighting tactics.
Mm.
In fact, my first time I went to Israel, I failed for that same reason, is that and that's what they told me, is that you're a very good martial artist, but you don't really grasp Krav Maga mindset very well. And they were absolutely right. But by being there, I got a good idea of what that is and what that means, and was able to make those changes over the past several years. So
Hmm.
I think those are probably my two biggest influential things in my life, centering around travel and learning about other cultures.
Nice. Yeah, that would be really interesting. Who like tell us a little bit more about that experience in Israel? Like, who did you train with? Like, what was it? Was it like a tour?
Yeah. I just went to the Wingate Institute
Okay.
and just trained with the guys there, just the staff, uh,
Hmm.
and it was a very good educational experience with me. Ernie Kirk put together a tour, and I said, "I'll go," and so it went, and it was great. I learned a lot, uh, and the real difference is that in Israel they kind of view themselves as uh, like a castle that's constantly under siege, and they're trying to survive, and so they view their martial art as, this is what we have to do to survive.
Right.
Versus in America, we tend to view our martial arts of, it's Tuesday, let's go work out,
Right.
and just a very very different thought process.
Mm. I guess. Yeah. I guess it would be, and they are constantly under siege, but nice. And how has understanding that mindset, like, how do you help your students develop the same mindset?
Stress drills. We work on. First, I'm a big believer in the concept that first you have to learn a thing, then
Hmm.
after you've learned the thing, then you drill it, and then
Hmm.
once you can drill it and you can do it during drills, then you can start stressing it. Uh,
Yeah.
I think a big mistake a lot of places make is they start stressing things immediately without really helping people understand, the movement.
Mm.
Uh, but I think we have to get to that concept of stress drill, and then adding in variables. Uh, you're supposed to be doing a technique like a drill where, uh, like a black bag drill, where you got a thing over your face and it gets pulled off and you've got to do it, whatever technique. But then things happen that are external to what the parameters of the drill are supposed to be. Like you're doing
Mm.
a knife defense against this fellow, but then somebody hits you in the back of the head with a body shield, and you got to figure that out. Uh, I think throwing those uh, uh, real world type things that might happen into the
Mhm.
mix help. But I think it's important that the surprise has to be. I think we have to keep focused on what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to create a situation where somebody is training for the real world in terms of things that might actually happen in self-defense. So
Yeah.
I think where you get that information from is watching videos of self-defense stuff and see, well, what variables got thrown out. Like some guys got somebody at a top mountain, they're wrestling, and someone out of the crowd walks in and just kicks the guy in the face
Yeah.
because he thought he could do a sport grappling maneuver in a defense situation, and
Mhm.
then some random person just came and sandblasted him. Well, that'd be a pretty good drill to work on, wouldn't it? to avoid making the tactical mistakes in terms of what types of techniques you're using, and then paying attention, stuff like that. So I think that kind of stress drill, but unsafely, is a very good way to help students start to develop the mindset that we want for Krav Maga tactics.
Nice. And so how do you introduce someone into this style of training? Because Krav Maga training's not like traditional training, right? So how do you take someone brand new, and what's the most important thing you want them to grasp first?
I think the first thing you want someone to grasp, in my opinion, is that it's always better to be leaving than fighting. However, that's not the first thing you can present usually. A lot of people walk into a martial arts school or Krav Maga school especially, and they're like, let's go, bro. And so you got to kind of shape them, because what they've seen is movies, TV, stuff like that. So they either come in thinking they're John Wayne and they're going to come in and be Billy Badass, or they come in and something bad has happened and they have a lot of fear and PTSD that they're trying to overcome. So that's pretty much the two kinds of people we get, really.
Right.
So either way, it's best to start with something physical and interesting, but also pretty simple. So I might start with something like, how do you do a wrist escape? And then the first stress drill might simply be something, once they can do the wrist escape in a drill, just stand there and close your eyes, and someone grab your wrist, you open your eyes and do the technique. And even just something as foolishly simple as that, you add in just a slight degree of uncertainty, and it's enough stress for day one. And then over time, we can add in other stuff like, do a game where at any point in time during class, somebody can grab somebody else's wrist, and if you get them through one of the doors, they got to do 10 burpees because they died. Just fun drills like that. And so I think you can take a foundation concept of uncertainty and then build on it, and do so in a safe fashion. If people are getting hurt in your class, then they don't want to come to your class. So I think that's a pretty important thing too.
Yeah, and if they're not coming to class, then they're never going to learn how to keep themselves safe, right? Which defeats the entire goal. All right. Well, Derek, I want to thank you for your time. And it's been really interesting. If someone wanted to train with you and reach out to you, can you give us the rundown on your locations and contact info, I guess?
Yeah, sure. So we operate Premier Martial Arts, and you just look at Premier Martial Arts / Asheville, would go straight to me. Let me see here. Our phone number for our north location is 828-713-0765. And our phone number for our south location is 828-620-0327. So anybody who wants to come and hang out with us, we'd love to have you. And you can call whichever location you want. Since I own both of them, I don't care if you go to one, the other, or both. I have students that kind of bounce back and forth as their work schedule changes, depending on what life happens. Or I have some families where a kid goes to, there has multiple households, and they might be in different parts of town. So that makes it easy. I've got a kid who goes 1 week he's up here in Asheville, and 1 week he's down there in Arden, and that's just fine. So we're happy to work with people on stuff like that too.
Awesome. And are you available for seminars if anyone wanted to get you out for different seminars?
Sure. Yep. I'm available for such things.
Perfect. All right, sir. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for being on the show. You take care, okay?
All right. Well, thanks. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.